Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. My name's Eric Ashburn. I'm a partner and private wealth advisor here at Argent Bridge Advisors, and I appreciate you joining the webinar today on Roth conversions. To me, I believe it's an exciting webinar that I have today with some useful information. Hopefully you think the same. But really what I plan to be covering today is what is a Roth conversion, why do it, when do you do it, and how do you do it. The big thing I'm going to focus on is if you are going to do it, who does it typically make sense for, and what are the best times to consider completing a Roth conversion. Before I get started, I just need to show one slide for compliance purposes, just some information on us, Argent Bridge Advisors, and our contact information as well. So any questions after the call, please feel free to reach out to me, Eric Ashburn. You have our service email here, abservice@argentbridge.com. I can be contacted that way as well as anyone else on our team. With that being said, I'm going to stop sharing the slide and get started. So first, what is a Roth conversion? I want to get started. That should not be confused with a Roth contribution. But before I even get started there, just briefly wanted to say what is a Roth. So a Roth IRA or a Roth 401k is a type of retirement account where when you contribute, you get no deduction or tax advantage for doing so when you contribute. However, the account, as it grows over time, when you come ready to use it in retirement, after age 59 and a half, you, in most situations, have access to all of the money, all of the growth completely tax-free. So that is different from a traditional IRA or 401k or TSP for many of you, where when you contribute, it makes your taxes lower. So you immediately see the benefit. It makes your taxes lower. You get that deduction, but when you take the money out in retirement, unlike the Roth, you have to pay taxes on whatever you're taking out for that year. And then when anyone else inherits the account at your passing, they would have to pay taxes in the traditional IRA and 401k. So that's the difference. Typically, many companies give you the option. You can contribute to the Roth 401k or traditional 401k or Roth TSP or traditional TSP, or it doesn't have to be a work plan. And that's where the IRA comes in. You can do a Roth IRA, you can do a traditional IRA. I'm simplifying it to some degree. It does get more complex than that, but that's at least the basic way to start thinking about it. So that is what they are. So when you contribute to the account while you're working, that's a contribution. What a conversion is, and what I'm going to be talking about today, is when could it possibly make sense to, let's say you've built up, you've been contributing for a year, it's getting the deduction for a traditional 401k or traditional IRA, and you want to move that to a Roth. You want to pay the taxes now, but never have to pay taxes again on the earnings. That's a conversion. And there's some different rules around it, and it's different than a contribution for that reason. You're not contributing any new money. You're just moving things around and accepting the tax consequence. So that's kind of the what. What is it? A couple important points about conversions. Like I said, it means moving money from the traditional to the Roth. It means paying taxes on that money and out of pocket in the year that you're making that conversion. So it comes at a cost. You're having to pay that out of pocket, the taxes. Another difference is you can convert at any age. So there's no limits or income requirements, whether low or high, any amount. You can do it at any time. Anyone can make a conversion. And I would say the only restriction possibly is if you wanted to move money out of your traditional 401k while you're still at your current employer, they may not allow you to take any money out to do a conversion or something else with, if you're under age 50. But you can do it with any former plan. You could do it with a traditional IRA that you've started. So many people do have the option to do it in some way. And that gets into the why. The why is to pay taxes sooner rather than later in order to have that tax-free money in retirement. It's also your Roth account is not subject to any required minimum distributions like a traditional IRA or 401k would be, where you're required to start taking money out at age 72 and start paying taxes. Roths don't have any sort of rules like that, so you can keep it growing tax-free and either pass it on to your heirs or have complete flexibility over it in retirement. So now that I've covered the what and the why, I'll jump to the when. I could come up with a list of kind of 8 points to think about of when to do a Roth conversion, and I will go through that list now. Number one is your income is lower, and it'll go up later in your career or in retirement. So that's a broad way to look at it. So really, a couple of examples are, it could be great in your early 60s, before your required distribution start at age 72, and before you started Medicare and Social Security and these things. So it's great for maybe right in retirement where you don't have that income. So there's a period where your income's a little bit lower before Social Security, where you can start moving that money over, paying a little bit in taxes, but have that great benefit for later. So I would say early retirement is number one. Number two is if you have a year where you're unemployed or you're away from your career or you're in sales and your income's lower due to something unforeseen, COVID, or something unexpected just with your industry. If you're lower, that could be a blessing in disguise in a way, because it gives you an opportunity to convert where it may not have made sense before. It's something that you kind of have to take year to year to ask yourself to say, what's my income? What are my taxes now? And what will taxes be in the future? The current tax laws will sunset in 2025, and I'm sure there'll be changes along the way. So it's something you'll continue to have to ask yourself year to year if it makes sense. But really, when your income's lower, that's step one of making it appealing. Number two is potentially before you get married, before marriage, if being married will put you in a much higher tax bracket. So each person's retirement savings is just their own. You can't have like a joint retirement account or anything like that. So it's just in your name. And if you are a lower earner and going to be married to someone and forever have higher taxes as a result, this could be an opportunity, maybe in the few years beforehand, to start moving some of that money over and having it grow tax-free. That could benefit you or benefit your family for the years to come in retirement. So those are the first two reasons. Number three, I would say if you want to lower your heirs' tax burden for your beneficiaries, say in retirement, if you're elderly, you are in a low tax bracket and your kids are high earners or just in a higher tax bracket than you. You know that at your passing, you're not going to need the money, but at your passing, it will go to them and it'll be taxed at a higher rate and lower their inheritance. A Roth conversion, potentially before your passing, paying the taxes will end up netting them more money potentially. So it's worth considering in those cases where you want to lower the tax burden for your beneficiaries. Or even potentially looking at it the other way, if you are facing a situation where you may be paying estate taxes. In other words, you have too much in your estate. And as a result, when your kids or beneficiaries inherit the money, a great portion of it will be taxed as a result. A Roth conversion is a way to get them to lower your estate, to pay the taxes, get that estate lower, which again will end up netting your children more, lowering the tax burden overall. So we've talked about a few different points in life where it could make sense. But the next one thing I'll go to is number 4, when to do a Roth conversion, is you need to have the money in non-retirement to pay this tax bill. I would say that's the largest disadvantage for many, is they don't have the funds set aside to pay the bill that's going to result. I'll just use a simple example. If you convert $100,000 you have in a traditional IRA, you want to move it to the Roth and pay taxes. Let's say you're in the 20% bracket. If you are in the 20% bracket, that's $20,000 right there. So not everyone has that ready to spend on taxes. So you have to do some planning to make sure that you have the $20,000 set aside to pay that tax bill. That is a very important consideration. Number 5 is if the market has moved down. So I'll use the same example. You have $100,000 and 2008 happens again and it drops to $50,000. Your traditional IRA or your retirement plan, you're at a very low point in the market. That could be an excellent opportunity to convert to a Roth, because you're only taxed on the amount you convert. So 100,000 drops to 50,000. If you then convert that 50,000 to a Roth, you're only paying taxes on that $50,000. So you're basically cutting the tax bill in half or less in many cases. And then you're done. That 50,000, after the market recovers over the coming years, that'll forever grow tax-free. So once it hits 100,000, 150, and so on, keeps growing, you won't have to pay taxes on that money, and you only paid with the market at a low. So movement downs could be a great opportunity, especially if you're optimistic in the recovery. Paying the taxes now can make a lot of sense in those cases. Number 6 of 8, the number 6 reason is you want to lock in your tax rates. So maybe you are just of the belief that either your tax rates are going to go up in retirement due to a pension, or you're going to need to take money out of retirement or Social Security, your rates are going to go up, or as a country or state, just tax rates in general are going to go up. I can tell you that's a pretty common belief, just due to the level of debt in the US to help pay for that debt. Many think our tax rates will go up, especially considering we're near all-time lows at this point in history, at least in the US. So for that reason, many people think they'll go up. So sometimes ripping that Band-Aid off and paying the taxes now, especially when it's at a manageable rate, is comforting to eliminate that uncertainty and lock in the rates and know you're not going to have to pay taxes later. A side note to be careful for, and one risk of a conversion in certain cases, is if you're going to start Medicare or Social Security in 2 years, or you're already receiving Medicare or Social Security, you need to be really careful, because if your joint income with the Roth conversion pushes you above 176,000 of income, your premiums can go up pretty dramatically. For example, let's say your married joint income is 77,000 and you want to do a $100,000 conversion at age 64. Once you do that, it will push your income to 176,000. If you are $1 above that, then your premiums increase dramatically. So for example, right now, If you are over $176,000 in income, and this number will change some with inflation, but if you're over 176,000, you'll pay about $60 more a month for Part B Medicare and about $12 more a month for Part D. So you're looking at, it'll only last a year, but that's $72 a month extra that you're paying. I'm not saying it will make it a bad decision or you shouldn't do it, but that goes into the equation as you're balancing pros and cons and seeing if it makes sense for you. That's a cost that must be considered. The seventh reason is you need more tax diversity. So if you have everything in your TSP or retirement account, for example, you really don't have much flexibility in terms of taking money out. You're kind of just a victim to whatever the tax rates are at that point, to require distributions that you'll have to take out at age 72. It's good to have some sort of balance, and it doesn't have to be 50-50. Everyone's situation is different, but having some in the Roth is attractive just to give you more flexibility. So maybe if income or taxes aren't favorable, you can shift to taking from the Roth and not have to pay taxes on that money. And I will say that you could, if you're still working, solve this through contributions, just contributing to the Roth. You don't have to do a conversion. But let's say contributions alone aren't enough or isn't an option at your employer. You can't do a Roth 401k because a Roth IRA has pretty low limits at $6,000 per year under age 50. So you're just not able to contribute as much and really reach that tax diversification, especially if you're starting a little bit later with the Roth. So that could be an excellent reason to consider a conversion. It's a way to control taxes to some degree, especially for a big purchase coming up in retirement or something you want to do. If you're forced to take that from your retirement account, a traditional retirement account, that could mean extreme taxes, and that it's best just to have options. It's always better to have options. Another time where maybe you want to consider doing a Roth is you have a charitable deduction carry forward. That will lower the tax bill to some degree. And again, it's just something to look at as the overall picture. But if you have that charitable deduction carry forward, the tax bill will be much more manageable and you'll be able to plan around it that way. I just wanted to give a quick example of how it could work if you were to do a conversion. Let's say you had $40,000 you wanted to convert from your traditional IRA to a Roth. If you had $40,000 and we're in the 15, we'll just call it 15% tax bracket, that $40,000 would lower to $34,000. You'd pay $6,000 in taxes from making the conversion. You'd lose $6,000 right up front. However, let's say for the next 15 years, and this is no guarantee, this is just projections of what ifs. What if the market grew at 5%? Historically, the average, long-term average has been around 6%, so 5% seems like a fair rate for the market. Let's say it grows at 5% for 15 years. Your $34,000, thanks to compounding, is now $67,318. That $67,318 is completely tax-free. You won't have to pay any taxes on that money. If you were to do the other scenario of leave it in the traditional, that $40,000, you wouldn't lose any to taxes when you first started, but that $40,000 would grow for 15 years. Let's say it's at the same rate to $79,197. So it would be higher because it started out as a higher balance. However, anything you take from that $79,000, you'll have to pay taxes. So if tax rates go up or you're in a higher bracket, the savings could be huge. Let's say you're in a 25% bracket because taxes have gone up in retirement, thanks to Social Security, income, the rest of your retirement income, required distributions, what have you. Let's say you're in a 25% bracket. If that's the case, and you took it all out at once, you'd pay $19,799 in taxes compared to the $6,000 you paid up front. So that's a huge savings. If tax brackets were exactly the same, there would be no right answer. You'd have the same result, whether you left it in your traditional or moved it to the Roth. But you're banking on tax rates being the same. That's why balance is typically good. It's definitely worth at least a consideration, and strongly advise speaking to your financial advisor or me after this call with any questions around that, but it's worth at least running the numbers and seeing if it makes sense for you. A couple other just additional points, things to consider, is there's no required distributions from a Roth. If I haven't mentioned that, be careful of upcoming Medicare premium increases, Social Security increases, kids in college, because it could screw up your income for that year and affect their aid, which you want to be considerate of, and any other implications that it can have. As I said, contributions to the Roth are typically options, but not everyone, it's not always offered. And there are some income thresholds for Roth IRAs. And then lastly, the deadline is year end for each year. So you can make the decision each year at any age, at any time, but the deadline for 2021, for example, will be December 31st. So something that would have to be done before then. With that being said, I think that is all the material I had prepared for today. Again, my name is Eric Ashburn with Argent Bridge Advisors. Thank you all for joining the call, and please reach out to me with any questions. But until then, best of luck, be safe, be healthy, and I'll talk to you soon.